And joining us here in Washington, Brian Deese, director of the National Economic Council. Brian, welcome back to Fox News Sunday. Good to have you.
Happy to be here.
Okay, so let's look at some of the polling and seeing how Americans are feeling about the economy this morning. Fox News asked, do you feel optimistic or pessimistic? 32% optimistic, 65% pessimistic. And that has been, tracking the numbers, unfortunately, moving in the wrong direction. The condition of the economy, 82% of people say it's only fair or poor. And then we ask people a personal question. How is this impacting you and buying things like gas prices? 90% say it's a problem for them. 88% say grocery prices. Utility costs, 81%. The president this week asked Americans to have confidence in the economy. They clearly don't, though.
Well, look, we get it. When you drive up to the pump and you see the prices that we have today, it creates uncertainty and it creates real economic hardship. But at the same time, it is important as Americans that we recognize the unique strengths that we have in this economy. The strongest labor market since World War II, unemployment at 3.6%, household balance sheets that have repaired over the course of the last year. So we now have the lowest mortgage delinquencies in 15 years, the lowest credit card delinquencies in 30 years. Those are sources of strength that are unique to the American economy. We have a stronger and better position to tackle inflation than almost any other country around the world. But that's what we need to do now. And the president has made very clear that fighting inflation, bringing down prices is his top economic priority. He's using the tools that he has, and he's calling on Congress to pass legislation that would help to accelerate this process of bringing down prices without giving up all of the economic gains that we've made.
So Bloomberg reporting on this advanced negotiations that you have going on with folks on Capitol Hill, Democrats, this name that always comes up as a fly in the ointment for you guys, which is Senator Joe Manchin. He's actually getting praise from people across the political spectrum for blocking Build Back Better, as even the Fed has said that contributed to inflation potentially to the tune of 3 percentage points. How is this going to factor in for you now with Manchin and these new negotiations? What can you get done?
Well, I'm going to leave the negotiations where they are, not talk about them here. But what I'll say substantively is what are we talking about right now? We're talking about some concrete measures to lower costs that typical families are facing. Take Medicare prescription drugs. We can lower those costs by allowing Medicare to negotiate for better prices. That actually reduces federal spending and reduces costs paid by consumers. Lowering energy bills, utility bills with common sense tax credits, and reducing the deficit. Reducing the deficit with long overdue tax reform. Economists across the spectrum agree that if we take those steps, it'll be complementary to what the Fed is trying to do. Not only help to lower prices, but also send a signal to the market and the world that the United States is focused on this issue and is committed to bringing prices down, again, without giving up all of the extraordinary economic gains that we've made.
So what's a timeline for getting those things to a vote? We have an August recess coming. We have midterms coming that could potentially change the makeup of what you all control on Capitol Hill and can get done.
Well, those conversations are happening. I'm going to leave them to the leadership. What I would say is we're hopeful, and we really want to see something move here in the short term. Because, again, this is not just about enacting legislation. It's about giving some relief to families right now and sending a signal that not just the president and the Federal Reserve, but Congress recognize that fighting inflation needs to be our top priority.
Okay, so let's talk about the possibility of recession. It continues to seem to be a growing real possibility. Steve Ratner, who was part of the Obama-Biden administration, said the Fed is going to hike interest rates. Obviously, that has happened. But he said to get from where we are back to that goal of 2% inflation, the Fed's never done it without a recession. Now, he's not the only one talking about this. Growing number of U.S. CEOs also think that is the problem. The Wall Street Journal reporting this. It says more than 60% of CEOs expect a recession in their geographic region in the next 12 to 18 months. And they go on to say that a business research team finds that an additional 15% think that the region of the world where their company operates is already in a recession. So 75% of top business executives think we're there or we're about to be there.
Well, look, a lot of things about the economy right now are unique. We've also never been in a situation where we've had 3.6% unemployment and the record level of job openings, 11 million job openings right now, which means there's a lot of incumbent strength in the labor market that puts us in a good position. But I talked with CEOs this week from sectors across the American economy, and what I hear from them is that we are moving through a transition. Americans are spending less money on goods at home. They're spending more money on services. For some companies, that's a real challenge. For others, it's an opportunity. The housing market is recalibrating after record home price increases, which have meant, by the way, if you're a typical homeowner, you have probably $50,000, $60,000 in additional equity in your home. But we need to bring those house price increases down, and that's going to filter through the economy. But as we move through this transition, not only is a recession not inevitable, but what we as policymakers can do is take steps to build on our unique strengths in the American economy and try to get to that stable and steady growth that we all want to get to as quickly as possible. So when you hear us talking about these policy measures, it's because what we can do right now is send a signal that we all get it, that inflation has to be our top economic priority, but there are things that we can do. There are tools that we can deploy. There's steps that we can take right now.
So let's talk about the issue of taking responsibility. Here's what the president said back in 2020 during the campaign. He said, it's hard to believe that this has to be said, but unlike this president, referencing President Trump, I'll do my job and take responsibility. I won't blame others. In fact, it was a hallmark of his campaign. Here's a bit of his campaign ad to that point.
The buck stops here. Harry Truman said it. It means no excuses. It means taking responsibility, the ultimate responsibility for the biggest decisions in the world.
New York Post opinion piece put it this way this week. They said Biden alternates between claiming credit for everything good that happens in America and swearing to be an innocent bystander to an economy going off the rails. So does the buck stop with the president or not?
Of course it does, and I think you've seen this president consistently stand up and give it straight to the American people, explain to them the challenges and the opportunities, and importantly, his plan going forward. You know, when Putin began amassing troops on the Ukrainian border, the president stood up and said clearly, this war will not be without costs, but we must defend democracy. We must hold the Western order, and Democrats and Republicans stood with him as well. Now he is saying we have global economic challenges. We have energy prices that are set globally. That's not an excuse. That's a reason why we need to focus on the steps that we can take here at home to produce more supply of energy in the short term and also provide some relief to American families in the short term as well.
So let's talk about that, because the president has taken aim at President Putin. He has, and by the way, inflation was fourfold from when he took office to when the invasion of Ukraine began. But now he's going after the oil companies at a time when you all need to be working together. It appears to be a bit antagonistic at this point. Here is what he said to fossil fuel companies, to oil companies on the campaign trail back in 2019. This was his message.
I guarantee you, we're going to end fossil fuel, and I am not going to cooperate with it, okay?
Okay, you are a numbers guy. Would any sane executive invest tens of billions of dollars into infrastructure that the president has said he's going to destroy?
Well, let's talk about some numbers first. Today, America is the largest producer of oil and gas in the world. This month, we're producing 12 million barrels of oil. That's higher than the average under the prior president.
Well, actually, 2019 was the peak.
2019 was the peak. It then came down precipitously during COVID and has now come back. But we are a net exporter of oil. We actually produce more oil than we consume, and we send the rest.
Let me stop you there and give you a chance to answer this, because Yahoo Finance has a real in-depth piece about this, and their headline is "The Myth of Energy Independence." They say, with regard to oil, the main component in gasoline, the U.S. consumes more than it produces. Flatly stated, the U.S. is not oil independent in terms of raw crude, and I know there are a lot of different definitions we could use here. The U.S. has long been a net importer. They say it still is.
Well, there's a lot of different definitions and types of crude. The reality is we are a net exporter of oil, but more important than that for the immediate term is what we can do to increase supply. As you said, supply came down precipitously during COVID. We want to see that come back and come back online. In the near term, the companies have a very powerful market incentive. Prices are high and their profit and profit margins are high. And what we are encouraging is that they take those and put those profits to work to increase production. But over the medium term, this is very important. The president's policy has always been a transition to clean energy. And that means building on the strengths of our energy system and also following the science. And the science shows that even with very ambitious climate targets that this president is committed to, oil will continue to be a part of our economic equation this decade and the next. They have a medium-term incentive to invest as well. And in fact, many of those companies have committed to that same transition. Many of those companies have similar net zero targets. So what we are encouraging, and the President's Secretary of Energy will be meeting with companies over the course of this week, is let's get pragmatic steps in the near term. The Dallas Fed did an interesting study. They asked all of these energy executives, what is keeping you from doing this? 94% of them said something other than government regulations. But what we're saying is, if there are places where the federal government can take a practical and responsible step in the immediate term, we're open. We're open to hearing them.
Okay, well, the industry has given you a list of those. They say that their refineries in the U.S. right now are producing at or near full capacity. They also say a third of their capacity has been taken down because of conversion to renewable fuel production, as you talk about that transition. So they say that's stopping them. A letter from the head of the American Petroleum Institute says this: your administration has restricted oil and natural gas development, canceled energy infrastructure projects, imposed regulatory uncertainty, and proposed new tax increases on American oil and gas producers competing globally. So why should they take the risk, as we talked about, continuing to pour tens of billions of dollars into it? They say they lost tens of billions of dollars during the pandemic, as many people did, many industries did, and that they had to borrow against that tens of billions to ramp it back up and make sure they could produce now, but that you guys are handicapping them.
Well, again, what energy executives say is 94% of them say that there are other barriers other than federal regulation. But you have a president that says if there are practical and specific things that we can do in the immediate term, you raised refineries. About 1 million barrels a day of capacity came off. Companies took that offline during COVID. Some of that has been shifted to produce biofuels, but other facilities are standing idle. And what we're saying is, at a moment where these companies are generating record levels of profit because the prices have gone up because of the war over the last couple of months, put that investment to use. And if there are practical things that we can do, we're willing to listen and willing to be open. And over the medium term, this transition that we need to move through is a transition that the market recognizes. These companies recognize that's not a transition that happens overnight, but it is a transition that we all need to commit to.
Quickly, are you all worried about the optics of a visit to Saudi and looking like we're going sort of hat in hand, needing their help? Their human rights abuses are documented. The killing of journalist Jamal Khashoggi, there are real worries. And there are Democrats speaking out saying they don't think the president should be making this trip.
What's behind this is a very simple proposition, which is when it is in U.S. interest for the president to engage with a foreign leader, he will do so. If he believes he can advance U.S. national security interest and U.S. economic interest for American families.
Even though he said at one point Saudi Arabia should be treated as a, quote, pariah.
This trip, where he's going to go to the Middle East, he's going to go to Israel and meet with a number of leaders, is about exactly that. It's about advancing U.S. interests. We have significant interests, national security interest in the region, as well as economic interests as well. He will vigorously represent American interests while also vigorously representing American values. That's what you can expect from the president on this trip.
Okay. Brian, thank you very much for making the time. Good to have you on Fox News Sunday today.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.